So hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be attempting to platinum probably the worst game I've played in a genuinely long time. I'm sure by now you've all seen or at least heard about Gollum, and also how bad the graphics are compared to the trailer shown only a year prior.
What the hell?
This game is already going on eBay for £25 brand new, and if that doesn't show how bad the game is, then I'm sure this will. The trophies in this game aren't actually too bad and can be earned in just 2 playthroughs. That said, however, these 2 playthroughs were a complete buggy mess, and I will go on record now genuinely stating that this game should never have been released in the condition it's in. But you know how games be these days. But enough talk, let's see how bad this game actually is and hopefully earn that platinum trophy. Gollum. We start the game off in the Shadow Mountains in Mordor, where Gollum is hiding for some unknown reason. This is where we can learn the controls for the game, like jumping and climbing and long jumping. Yeah, this intro area is pretty boring. It was actually pretty early on in this section that we can earn the first trophy of the game called Collectibles Part 1. And yes, that is genuinely the name of the trophy. There's only 35 collectibles in this game, so the collectible grind wasn't actually too bad, so at least the game had something going for it.
Teeth sharp again with this one.
After collecting this collectible, I decided to test the full damage in this game. You genuinely cannot make this stuff up. A fully priced game, multiple years in development, and this is the health bar you choose. On top of that, moving the camera too close to Gollum literally turns him invisible. Moving on, the second trophy I earned was pretty easy too. Once you reach Gollum's cave, there are 6 memories to look at, and each one will tell you a bit more about the story. After listening to all 6, the trophy popped.
And if she's not happy, what does she do then?
After falling down this cliff, Gollum decides to follow the orcs, and this is where we can engage in the first combat section. And yeah, this is something I guess. What happens next is 10 times worse though. There are 2 separate trophies in this game, one for finishing as Gollum and the other for finishing as Smeagol. If you don't know, Smeagol is the good side of Gollum and Gollum is of course Gollum. There are multiple parts in this game where you get to choose how it plays out, either doing something passive as Smeagol or doing something crazy as Gollum. In this section, Gollum stumbles across a beetle, and this is where we are prompted with our first choice. I chose to save the beetle, as in my first playthrough I was going for the trophy Good Smeagol, but I could genuinely not believe my eyes when this was the screen that popped up.
Beetle wants us no harm, does it? Could be a spy, it could be.
Seriously, how did this game make it through development, and even more so, how did this game get the green light to even be released in the first place? Chapter 2 starts out with Gollum being held captive, unable to jump and forced to obey orders. After walking through an area in a single file line, we eventually find the second collectible. This is also the same area that we are required to do a task for the Beastmaster. Essentially, you have to round up these beasts by using yourself as bait. Originally, this was something I assumed was going to be pretty difficult, but after flipping the first lever, it was pretty clear this was nothing to be afraid of. After reporting back to the Beastmaster, I went down to the next level and was greeted by an orc for yet another task. This time, we had to collect all the tags of the dead bodies, and while doing this, we can earn not 1 but 2 trophies for literally jumping into the lava and dying. After collecting all of the tags, we can take them back to the orc and grab another collectible before heading off to sleep after a hard day's work. Before we can sleep, however, Gollum looks out towards this super unrendered bridge before Frail Man lets us know about a collection of maps stored inside the Halls of Grond. And yes, this guy's name is literally Frail Man. I'm gonna be completely honest, this story was just not hooking me at all, And I mean, it's bad enough to have a graphically messy game, but for the game to also be completely uninteresting is just an outstanding combo that no one else has ever done before. There was a single cutscene at the end of this area that genuinely interested me, but before the story even developed, the cutscene just ends.
Dangerous work. But after a while, he knew where the guards watched. He'd steal redstones and hide them in a cave near the bridge. Just one stone each day, so the guards wouldn't notice.
Why?
Why do you think?
What happened?
Well, one day he slipped and fell.
That's not a nice story.
I suppose not.
After making our way out of the mine, Gollum gets jumped by one of the orcs, and this is where we witness yet another scene that makes you think, just how did this game survive development?
Are you deaf, little Gollum?
This next part of the chapter was so long and genuinely just so boring that I don't really have much else to say about it. I can confidently say though, the best feature in this game so far is being able to hide in the shadows and the enemies can't see you. After making it through this section, we could start working towards the trophy Nervous Hands. Before that though, here is a random trophy for falling into the water. For the trophy Nervous Hands, you need to complete an entire segment without taking any damage, and allegedly, this is one of the better segments to attempt it in, as there isn't many enemy encounters. This area was surprisingly enjoyable, as it allowed me to get to grips with the climbing mechanic, and while it is still really broken, I did start to get used to it after a while. The whole point of this area is to reach the map in the architect's building, and to do that, you need to climb your way above the lava and the high drops, all without taking a single hit of damage. However, due to how broken this game is, there is a way around this trophy to make it pretty easy to be earned. As long as you exit to the main menu before dying or taking a single hit of damage, it doesn't impact the trophy at all. Surprisingly, this seemed to work even when you've actually died as well for some reason, which just goes to show how broken this game is. After climbing our way to the top and collecting the map I needed, I duped one last orc and made my way down the gondola for the trophy.
No running, precious. It's too hard to come.
Eventually, Gollum agrees to climb the creaking bridge. Once on the bridge, we have to put a red stone in a barrel marked with a cross. This was a pretty simple task until I was prompted with the option to see how to progress and somehow died mid-cutscene.
Could escape this way, yes we could.
After blowing up the bridge again, we all get put on trial by someone literally called the Cruel Woman. This is when we are prompted with another choice, and of course, I chose Smeagol, and we blame the orc for the entire thing. After all of this, the trophy pops for completing Chapter 2. Chapter 3 starts out with more tasks, this time emptying the feeders for the fish in the bloodwater. This was kind of boring, but I got it done relatively fast, and then I was ordered to return back to my cell. At this point, it just kind of felt like I was playing a Gollum prison RP, and I was definitely praying for some kind of escape soon.
The little one? What about him?
My father wonders what's inside this unshapely head, and now I wonder too.
Do.
Take him to the tower.
You can't.
I can't.
You can't. He's useful, and I am going to keep him.
Perhaps we should have a look inside your head, Beastmaster. Clearly something vital is missing in there. Balrat, take that slave upstairs.
After this cutscene, we get taken to the tower and are able to meet the Candleman. This guy gets the answers he needs, as we have no other choice but to snitch on the Frail Man for the escape plan. You know, I just want to point out that it's crazy how generic these names are. You've got Cruel Woman, Candleman, Frail Man, and most of the orcs are just called Orc. It's like they ran out of budget to genuinely think of names. But moving on, the next area has you creating a bird from an egg. I genuinely don't understand what this has to do with anything in the story so far, but after managing to create another life form, we get enslaved to the Candleman.
You are my monster now.
And then the chapter ends, earning us another trophy. The next chapter literally skips years into the future, and for such a big time skip, you'd think there would be some kind of recap. Of course, that would be far from the case. This chapter starts with meeting someone called Grashneg. And the funny thing is, Grashneg is the nickname given to new prisoners, and yet this game just classes that as his real name and rolls with it. There is a trophy to be worked towards here called He's So Annoying. This is a trophy that spreads over multiple chapters and requires you to kill Grashneg in every way possible. Right here is the first place to do it because we are tasked with teaching Grashneg how to trap the beast. This was actually so broken and I have no clue how this is meant to be done. You're meant to guide Grashneg around the beast and lure them into the cage. The issue is he gets eaten pretty much every single time. One of the main issues I have with this game is that it's very uninformative. It does little to actually guide you in any direction and just kind of tells you the basics and expects you to know exactly what you're meant to do. This task literally took me multiple attempts as I was left with little knowledge, until suddenly, after doing the same thing for 5 minutes, the beast just auto-locked onto the cage and left Grashneg alive, allowing me to move on to the next area. Chapter 5 starts out with Gollum planning to escape this absolutely boring area, and to do that, he blames the Grashneg for murder. Doing this would send the Grashneg to the execution chamber, and we basically have to save him before he gets destroyed. To do this though, we first have to free the pointless bird from earlier and use it to grab the keys to the bird tower. This then allowed us to climb up the bird tower, which was genuinely the worst experience I have had this far. But after finally making it to the top, Gollum has to make this leap of faith. After witnessing the best cutscene of the game, we can make it past this glowing rock thing, save Grashneg from being eliminated, and then make our way towards the end goal of escaping. What I found pretty funny in this section is that we basically just avoided the death penalty and there was not a single repercussion. No orcs out to get us, no Candleman, nothing. We literally just escaped scot-free. In this sewer section, we can kill Grashneg for the second time by drowning him purposely when flipping this lever. On the way out, the cart was stopped by a few orcs, and as you may have guessed, they refused our exit out of the prison. Instead, we are taken back to this random orc, and what I didn't really understand was that the cage was just left open, allowing us to sneak past the orc and escape yet again. I felt this whole section was kind of pointless and just being put in the game in order to make the escape more longed out, and when I was already burnt out from how bad this area was in the first place, this section just felt extremely repetitive and unsurprisingly pretty boring. All I had to do now was ride on a random cart, avoiding obstacles and orcs, which, to be honest, could have easily been done on the back of Grashneg's cart, but you know, here we are. After jumping off the cart and climbing yet again, the escape was finally complete and the trophy popped for completing chapter 5.
But stream and pool and cool, so nice for feet. We only wish to catch a fish. Would love some fish now, wouldn't we, dear?
Chapter 6 was a relatively short one, but we do eventually run into Grashneg again. It is possible to finish off the trophy He's So Annoying for killing him in every single way. To start with, right at the beginning of the chapter, Grashneg is about to walk into 2 orcs, and the game wants you to distract the orcs and save him from dying. Of course, I just stood there and watched while Grashneg unknowingly walked to his doom.
Hounds! Take him!
The next death isn't until we reach the caves and eventually run into a massive spider that Gollum seems to like for whatever reason. There is a choice here for either saving Grashneg or killing him, and of course, I had to earn the trophy. The issue is though, to kill Grashneg, you have to choose the option as Gollum, and that eliminates our run for choosing the Smeagol options. Now, if I knew this from the start, I would have started this run with all Gollum options, but I'm going to be real, I did not want to make this platinum any longer than it needed to be, so I saved my game, backed it up to the cloud, and chose the Gollum option, and then escaped the spider to earn the trophy He's So Annoying. Then I downloaded my save from the cloud and chose the Smeagol option instead, putting us right back on track for the trophy Good Smeagol. I'm going to be honest with you all, I had zero clue how to attempt this platinum at all, and I was kind of just winging it at best. There's only been a handful of people that have platinumed the game, and there was hardly anything online to guide me, except for 2 YouTubers called Walker4 and Ben Gunn. These 2 genuinely saved me from dropping the game altogether, and I have to give them both a shout out for helping me along this platinum. Now that He's So Annoying had been earned, I could complete the chapter to earn another trophy. Even though we were technically still prisoners, Chapter 7 was probably one of the better ones for me, and I think it possibly had to do with the amount of trophy hunting in this later half of the game. For instance, literally 5 minutes into the chapter, we can turn around and go back from where we came from in order to steal food from Mel for another trophy. While sneaking past the elves, we run into the first vantage tower, and it's required to interact with all of them for the trophy Scout that should be earned later on. There is also another one in the same area that I made sure I didn't miss. After sneaking past all of the elves,
Hey! Found him!
we were tasked with traversing upstream, and I kid you not, if you even as much as touch the water, you die instantly. No death animation or anything, you just straight up die. Skipping forward a little bit, we were required to climb this massive wall in order to hopefully escape the area. Instead of reaching the top though, we are greeted with what is supposed to be a cutscene with the cruel elves, but you'll see what happens instead.
Smeagol didn't try to run. He just went for a swim and got lost.
See that shifting wall of mist in the distance, above the last line of trees? We call it the Ring of Haze.
Hey!
A haze so dense you can't see 5 paces ahead, tricking your mind like a twisted, willful mirror until you're utterly lost. And sooner or later, no matter how hard you try or how far you walk, all paths will lead you back to us.
After being told we can't escape, we are able to catch a fish for another trophy. Gollum decides that the elves are lying and devises a way to escape the haze even though it's been labelled as impossible. This is where Mel comes in, as she's the only known elf remaining from the creation of the haze. She is in constant belief that she isn't the only one to survive, and that the Riddlemaster also survived too. Gollum uses this against her, stating that the Riddlemaster is alive beyond the haze, essentially using Mel to open the haze and allowing us to escape relatively easily. She accepts our plan pretty fast and forces us to drink water from the shell, making it so that Mel is able to speak to us from the water. I thought this was pretty cool, as her voice moves around the headset, which kind of made me feel more involved in the game.
Elves up here.
And all they hear is you shushing yourself. Now listen. High above the Queen's waterfalls is a cave with hundreds of lights.
But eventually we made it to the top and was able to collect my 20th collectible for the trophy collectibles part 2.
Beautiful stone, but cold, like the Elf King.
In the section after this, there is another trophy to be earned for jumping off the bell tower 3 times. This for some reason only took 2 jumps instead of 3, but I wasn't really complaining. Then we enter the Riddlemaster's quarters and are required to find a random shell, and this was easily one of the worst tasks in the game. Because of the way they messed up the entire development, there is something extremely off about the way Gollum moves, and just in general how he jumps and lands. And until the specific jump, I kind of brushed past it and worked with what I was given, but this single jump was seriously something else. To grab the shell, you have to jump on this ledge, which originally didn't seem super bad, until you realize that the drop below is so high that missing the jump will instantly kill you. And on top of that, when you die, you spawn right back at the start of the checkpoint, taking at least 2 minutes to get back to where you started. This, combined with the fact that Gollum just doesn't jump properly, or moves when he lands, or genuinely 100 other reasons, honestly made me instantly despise attempting this jump in later playthroughs. After literally 6 or 7 tries, I finally landed on a platform, grabbed the shell, and then made my way up towards the king's quarters. The entire purpose of grabbing the shell was so that I could swim underwater for a prolonged period of time. But instead of actually allowing us to use the shell and swim underwater, we are just chucked into the next area without even getting to use it. Just another example of great game design. After grabbing the bell from Mel's room, the king returns, and then we are forced to sneak past without alerting a single guard. This was relatively simple, but what I really didn't understand was why the king just decides to open the door and then walk off. There was no thought put into this section at all. Just follow the king around, and then he unlocks the only exit for 0 reason before walking off and leaving it unattended. After escaping thanks to the king, we yet again had to sneak past a bunch of elves. It is also in this garden that we can activate the next vantage tower to work towards the trophy Scout. And then a little bit later on, we can activate another one. After freeing Mel from her room, she states that she's able to follow us by smelling our breath. And this went well for about 5 seconds before she started walking on the spot and able to move.
The elves won't get anything from him. Torture barely made him talk, and the elves have no heart for torture.
Thy confidence could be mistimed, dear friend. The old greybeard has entered the woodland realm no more than 2 weeks ago.
The bird snitching will play an important part in the next chapter, but for now, we had another choice to make. Of course, choosing Smeagol. Right after this, Mel just walks on her own with no guidance from Gollum, even though she's literally blind. This happens a few times in later chapters too, and it baffles me how they couldn't keep her in character for more than a single chapter. In the next section, there are 2 trophies that can be progressively earned throughout the area. The first of which is called Made a Song and requires you to hit all 6 bells. The first 5 bells are in this location, and the 6th bell is a bit further into the chapter. Once hitting all 5, we can also start the trophy So Nasty, which requires you to find all the food items for Mel. The first food item that can be found is Strange Berries, just outside the tower. The remaining 5 are found inside the bell tower, with 3 of them being story related. After picking up a few more, I hit the last bell for the trophy Made a Song. And then I picked up the last story related food item for the trophy So Nasty.
So big.
Once we return back to Mel, instead of feeding her, we can work towards another trophy called Master of the Old Game for hearing every riddle. And would you like to know how many riddles there are in this entire game? 3. There are literally 3 riddles in this entire game. The first 2 can be heard here and aren't really that interesting, to be honest.
Cannot be seen, cannot be felt, cannot be heard.
Dark.
Got that one. Even Baggins knew that.
Once feeding Mel and heading to sleep, we wake up to an ambush of some sort. I actually thought this might have been an orc attack or something, and I was preparing for a pretty cool fight scene. But instead we get these little flying orb things that the game tries to make out as dangerous, but are actually far from it. What's even funnier is that the game states you need to hit the bell with a stone, but you can literally just walk past every single one of them without any issues. After making it past the orbs, we reach the edge of the haze. Mel explains that there was 8 elves responsible for creating the haze and that they're all dead now. Rather than listening to her talk about her dead friends, I chose to hear one last riddle for the trophy.
Was that a word? The riddle needs words.
To open the haze, we have to figure out exactly which elf stood at which stone. And I'm going to be honest, this was genuinely the worst part of the entire game. The game gives an extremely brief tutorial on how to figure out which elf corresponds to which stone, and then you're just left on your own. The main issue with this section is that there's no sense of direction at all. No genuine guidance from the game whatsoever, and you're just chucked in, expecting to know exactly what to do. The idea is that you have to listen out for the whispers coming out of objects around the area, and then link it to a certain stone.
Smeagol found boots.
Yes. Those would be Turians. She always needed to feel the earth.
But these objects just don't show up on the intuition at all, and what made it worse is that the whispers only start when you're genuinely 2 centimeters away from the object. This left me wandering all over the place, just waiting to hear a whisper from an object. And what made it even worse was that some stones required more than one object to figure out which elf was at the stone. And with the game giving me no prior information regarding this, I found my first object, which was a broken dagger, only to be completely baffled when Smeagol turns around and says this.
Don't just guess, precious. Look around.
The whole tutorial stated that the object would lead to the stone, and this dagger led exactly to this stone, which then told me it was wrong. I was at a complete loss at this point and just admitted defeat, watching a guide on YouTube to get this area done. I did manage to figure this area out in later playthroughs by myself, and now I don't really find it that difficult, but honestly, how are you going to implement a brand new gameplay feature 8 chapters into your game just to half-ass explain it and leave the player stranded with no sense of direction. Anyways, once cheating my way through this section, we are greeted with another choice, and I chose the Smeagol option to make Mel leave. Now, I didn't really understand how she was gonna leave, but after winning the argument, she just disappears. I genuinely want to know the thought process behind the developers when creating Mel's character. Like, how can you create a character, constantly remind us for the last few chapters that she is fully blind, and then just have her leave in the middle of nowhere when she can't even see?
Mel! Mel! She doesn't hear you. You throttled him. Leave me alone! Leave me alone! Leave me alone! Precious.
After escaping the haze, we returned back to the same place we left, and I was just able to roam around, unsure what I was actually meant to do. It turns out that there was a cutscene that just didn't trigger, which wasn't even surprising at this point.
This can't be the other side.
No, it's not.
Finally, we told you you wouldn't get far.
Chapter 9 was actually not too bad in comparison to the rest, and we start off popping a trophy for spinning the Riddlemaster's paintings a few times.
Elf tree.
And then, after opening the Riddlemaster's mirror, we actually get to speak to him.
That shall be the password for the gate. Find me. Come to the source. It will be dangerous, but I am lost without you.
What gate? Does it know where Mel is?
Who are you?
I believe this is the first time in the whole game that there has been concrete proof of him being alive, and the game just completely brushes past it. Once convincing the cook to take us to the tree, there is another vantage tower waiting to be activated, and after making it to the top of this tree, the password for the gate was discovered to be a
deer with horns.
Now, remember when the bird flew off and snitched on Gollum to the Candleman? Well, because of that, the orcs decide to start a war with the elves just to get Gollum back in their possession, and it's in this area we can work towards a trophy Elf Friend for saving 3 different elves, the first of which being the Elf Cook. All you have to do is take down a single orc guarding the elf and just climb up the ladder to escape. The Elf Cook does a very poorly animated run, and the chapter ends earning us another trophy. Now we had reached the final chapter of the game, and I was in pretty high spirits at this point just to get the game over and done with. But these high spirits didn't last very long. There is a story related vantage point in this area that should have been the last one needed for the trophy, but after triggering the cutscene, no trophy popped. I was actually pretty annoyed at this, but eventually brushed it off as I needed to do another playthrough anyways, so I could attempt it again in the next playthrough. After this, we were given the option to either save or kill the elves, and I chose to save them, removing the Beastmaster from existence. And a little while after this, we can earn the trophy Trigger Happy for, I believe, spamming all 5 rocks. Then we eventually reach Mel, who is being forced to open the door by the Candleman for a reason that isn't really specified. The password for this door is the deer that was on the tree, and after managing to slip through the door without much issue, we could finally grab the last collectible for the trophy.
How did we get so old and thin, my precious?
And then we just meet the Riddlemaster out of nowhere, which was extremely anticlimactic, being as we just spent the better half of 4 chapters searching for his existence. He and Mel catch up, and then we are introduced to the source of the haze. The Riddlemaster tells us that we have to calm the haze down, so we climb up the right side, parkour our way through this area, and make it to this lever, which closes the right side window. After returning back to Mel, she states that the Riddlemaster hasn't returned. So after more climbing and basically doing the same thing again, we find the Riddlemaster. This prompts the final choice of the playthrough, and surprisingly, Gollum is the one that actually wants to save the Riddlemaster, and Smeagol is the one who wants to kill him. This created a major issue though, because as you know, I was choosing all Smeagol options alongside saving all the elves. Luckily for me though, this was easily cheesed, and after eliminating the Riddlemaster as Smeagol, I earned the trophy Good Smeagol. And then all I had to do was exit to the main menu, which restarts the checkpoint, allowing me to choose the Gollum option and save the elf this time around, earning me the trophy Elf Friend.
Wait.
let us leave now.
Now, I'm gonna be honest, the ending was pretty confusing to me. The source gets blown up by Gollum because the Candleman is trying to summon the Dark Lord. And while I completely understand the Dark Lord is a big deal and Gollum is scared of him, how are you just going to destroy the source to the only thing protecting the elves from harm, instead of just eliminating the issue at hand by killing the Candleman instead? And what makes this thing 10 times more stupid is that right after the source gets destroyed, we kill the Candleman anyway. And yeah, that's the whole game. Now that every chapter had been completed, I could go back through chapter select and unlock certain trophies I had missed in my first run, such as the trophy Murderer for killing 10 orcs, and also the trophy River Hobbit for swimming underwater for 2,000 meters. I just want to point out that this trophy took me a good 10 minutes, and I really don't understand why this trophy is even a thing in the first place, because there's only a few chapters in the game requiring you to swim in the first place, let alone for 10 minutes straight. Now that these trophies have been cleaned up, it was time to start the second run of the video. The goal for this run was to kill all the elves instead of saving them, choose only Gollum options, turn off all the lights, visit all the vantage towers yet again, and also beat the game without dying once. Now, you might be under the impression that not dying a single time throughout this extremely buggy and broken game is impossible, and you would be correct. There isn't and probably will never be a single player that does this trophy legit, because it's just genuinely not possible. The game is way too temperamental in its current state, and even in my first run, I died multiple times for absolutely nothing more than the game just being broken. So the main consensus to earn this trophy is to constantly restart the checkpoint before dying, and pretty much just hope that your death didn't save a single time throughout the run. With this in mind, I started a New Game Plus and got to work choosing every Gollum option that came up on my screen. This went pretty well actually, but I was constantly worried that the game would bug out and save a death, leaving me with no choice than to try again. After visiting all the vantage towers again, I reached the last one and yet again didn't unlock the trophy. This was easily the worst news I have been dealt so far, because it meant replaying the game yet again just to attempt this trophy once more. On top of that, after turning off every light I could find, the trophy Sweet Darkness also didn't pop. And then, to make matters 10 times worse, I made it to the Riddlemaster again just to be completely locked out of earning the trophy We Hates Them for killing all the elves. The way these choices work is that you need to convince the other half of Gollum to be on your side. For example, to kill the elf for this trophy, we have to choose the Smeagol option. And to win the argument, Gollum wants to know 2 people that Smeagol has helped throughout the entire game. The issue was, every single option I chose, Gollum would just shut me down and win the argument. I tried every combination in every single way, but every single time Gollum would win. So essentially, after playing through the entire game for the second time, I only came out with 2 trophies. One for choosing all Gollum options, and to my surprise, the other one for not dying in the playthrough. Now at this point, I was extremely burnt out from this game, and the last 2 miscellaneous trophies that didn't pop were just playing on my mind, as I had no real clue how to get them. I decided to do some digging online in the hopes that someone had the answer I was looking for. I eventually came across this video by Satiire. In the video, they showcase a specific spot in chapter 10 that has 3 lanterns in pretty close proximity to each other. And one of these lanterns was one that I knew for a fact I had skipped past and completely missed. So I loaded up chapter 10 and made my way to the correct spot, crossing my fingers and just praying that this was the last lantern for the trophy. With that one out of the way, the only miscellaneous trophy remaining at this point was Scout, for discovering all towers. I searched the entirety of the internet for literally any piece of information regarding this trophy and found nothing that helped my situation. I found this extensive description on the website Xbox Achievements that basically just said the trophy is glitched and unlocked for him in chapter 8. I had the video by Ben Gunn showing me the 4 vantage towers I had already been to in both of my playthroughs, and then I also had the video by Walker4 showing me 3 vantage towers instead of 4, but yet again, same ones I had already been to. I was at a complete loss at this point and was slowly considering the possibility of dropping the platinum altogether, as I wasn't too sure how many more playthroughs I could take at this game. As a random last shot attempt at getting any info regarding this trophy, I personally reached out to Walker4 on Twitter and explained that this trophy wasn't unlocking no matter what I did, and asked if he had any info. And to my surprise, Walker replied straight away, stating that there was actually 2 towers in chapter 10, and also another one earlier in chapter 7 that I may have missed too. So I immediately hopped straight into chapter 10 before eventually stumbling across one of the towers I had been told about. I honestly cannot thank Walker 4 enough for helping me out with this trophy, and if anything, without their help, this video would have probably never have seen the light of day. So please go check out their channel if you need any help with certain trophies. With every single tedious trophy now behind us, the only trophy remaining was to kill all elves. Now in my first run, I managed to kill the Riddle Master because I was doing the Smeagol only run. And basically, I just recreated that run again, playing through the game doing Smeagol only options, while still being sure to let the cook die, alongside getting the cruel elves eliminated by the Beastmaster. Once finally approaching the Riddle Master again, I confidently chose to kill the Riddle Master for the trophy. But of course, it would not be that easy. Due to letting the other elves get killed, it turned these arguments that were once in favour of Smeagol to now being in favour of Gollum. This basically resulted in Gollum yet again winning every single argument, and I was actually completely lost for words. I tried countless points and restarted the chapter countless times just trying to get any option that would let Smeagol win, but nothing was working. I don't think you guys understand how close I was to actually shelving this game forever until, for some odd reason, I figured out that choosing certain options when Smeagol is about to lose the argument changed the outcome of the option. For example, choosing the Frail Man option at the start would result in Gollum winning the point, but then choosing the Frail Man option as we are about to lose the entire argument resulted in Smeagol winning the point. I'm not too sure why this is the case, but I carried on and chose the bird option next, which again usually gives the point to Gollum, but this time gave Smeagol another point, winning the entire argument and finally at long last eliminating the Riddle Master for the platinum. So yeah, I can finally say I platinum Gollum, and I can safely say this is the worst game I've played in a long time. I would quickly like to give some pros and cons as to why you should never ever purchase this game. So I think we'll start with the pros. I actually think this game had a pretty decent soundtrack. And then for the cons, I feel like this game makes no effort to guide you in any way at all, basically assuming you know how to play the game already. The controls are genuinely so bad, and the movement has got to be some of the worst I've experienced for a AAA title. The stealth is extremely broken, and you can be caught while in the shadows, not to mention that as soon as an enemy gets within a close proximity of you, you're cooked instantly. There is no escaping once you've been seen, which is such a crap mechanic to have in a game. To be honest, I can go on and on about this game, but genuinely, please do not spend your hard-earned money on this game. I mean, even just looking at the character model of Gollum alone should turn you off spending any money on this game at all. I'm glad this platinum is finally finished, and I can happily move on to another game, knowing I persevered through this buggy mess and actually earned the platinum trophy. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye!